Just wanna be with you. Just wanna be with
you. Giving to your local church should be easy, and with Tithely, it is. Just download the app and securely register your credit or debit card. You're done. Now you can give during church services or anywhere else. Use Tithely to give a one-time gift or set up recurring donations. It's that simple. It's fast, secure, and easy to use. Tithely, the simplest way to give to your local church.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and I want to welcome you to New Slow Rivera Church Online. If this is your first time or the first time in a long time, we're so glad that you joined us today. We're excited that the mask mandate has been lifted, so if you've been waiting to join in person because of COVID, maybe it's time you come back. We hope this song encourages you. I'll talk to you again in a few minutes.
It's time for the sleeper to wake. It's time for the old wind to change. I hear the Spirit say, it's time. It's time for the dead man to rise. It's time for the great light to shine. I hear the Spirit say, it's time. Fling wide you heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people. time for the great light to shine. Oh, I hear the Spirit say, it's time. Oh, it's time. Flee wide you, heavenly gates. Oh, let the King of glory in. Oh, let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Oh, let the King of glory in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Fling wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. Oh, let him in. And open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Open up the windows, let the light in. Let the light in. Hey! Swing wide you, heavenly gates. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in. Come right in on your people's praise. Let the King of glory in. Let the King of glory in.
Giving is a part of our worship too. What we do with our money tells us what we value or what or who we trust with our lives. When you give 1% of your income to God each week, you're putting His kingdom first in your life. Your generosity is what allows us to come into your home or your car or your phone or wherever you are. Not just for you, but for so many others, like in Pecos, Las Vegas, my hometown, Albuquerque, Los Lunas, Villanueva, Gonzales Ranch, Lobato, even South Carolina and Oklahoma. When you give to New Soul Rivetta, you are investing in God's work in the world and especially in the Valley. You can text to give by texting the word blessed to 94000, or you can give online by clicking in the link below or going to newsoulrivetta.com. Or you can give by mail. Our address is on the screen in the comment section below. If you haven't yet, text someone the link and invite them to join us. If you're doing something in another room or looking at your Facebook or Instagram feed, come back to this page. Okay, let's do this.
So let's talk about road rage. Some people might think that road rage only exists in big cities with lots of traffic, but I am a witness of it even in 2-lane roads with no buildings around for miles and only 2 or 3 cars involved. I've been around people who, to everyone else, seem like really happy, sweet, and kind people, but when they get behind the wheel, there is a rage monster that is unleashed. These people transform and have an ongoing, frustrated, sarcastic monologue aimed at the people driving behind them, next to them, and in front of them. Maybe you know someone like this. Maybe you live with someone like this. Maybe it's someone you see in the mirror every day. One day I was working on a Saturday. I was leading a celebration event for people who were once homeless, living on the streets and addicted. And they had found sobriety and freedom and a new lease on life. It was a commencement ceremony attended by loved ones and friends, family. A beautiful moment. I was responsible for all the details of the event, so I was up early and working hard. I didn't eat that Saturday morning because I figured by the time it was over, I would meet my family out for brunch or a late breakfast. I had talked to Renee to put the plan in place. Those moments where all my family can be together are very important to me. I know how precious and limited they are, and it's hard for me to actually exaggerate how valuable and meaningful they are to me. So on this particular Saturday, I had it planned out in my mind while I was up working and my family slept in, that me missing our Saturday morning at home together would be made up by seeing them later to eat together and maybe do something fun afterwards. Well, the morning didn't go as planned. The event, which was incredible, ran long. I didn't get out until much later than I expected. And as I was driving home, tired, hungry, and hopeful, excited about seeing my family, I called Renee to let her know I was free and ready to go out and eat with our little crew. She responded with, "We already ate. We were really hungry and figured you were working, so we ate. And now we are headed out to the mall to do some shopping." Now, saying this out loud and sharing this with you right now, it seems like not that big of a deal. But in that moment, to me, it was like a hard slap across the face with a wet hand. I did not expect that response at all. I thought, so I missed it? You are just gonna do a Saturday without me just like that? I'm out. Am I out of the day? Am I left out? Left behind? I was instantly deeply hurt that they could so easily just go on with their fun Saturday without me. Renee had said that they would meet me to eat after I was done. She had said, and we agreed. Quickly, my hurt turned to rage, and I started giving Renee a speech over the phone about how upset I was. I ended up yelling at her over the phone because she didn't wait for me. And now my entire day was ruined because I wanted the Saturday to go a certain way, and it wasn't. My plan was ruined. My dream for how the day should go was over. I didn't get my way, and I was raging about it. She hung up on me, because I was yelling at her like a person who had become unhinged, and the conversation was no longer productive. I kept repeating, I remember this over and over again. But you said, but you said, but you said. Maybe you can relate to moments like that. We'll talk more about this in just a few minutes. Today, I want to welcome you. If you are home today sick or recovering from surgery, or you're joining us from, maybe you evacuated from the fires around, or you just moved into the area. However you're joining us today, I just want to welcome you. My name is Steve, and I'm the pastor at New Soul Rivera, and I am just so glad that you're with us today. And today we are continuing with a series we began a few weeks ago entitled Winning the War Within. And in this series, we are looking at the daily battles that we all must win if we're going to thrive and live life at the highest level. So why is this so important? Why even talk about this? If you aren't a Jesus follower, maybe you're agnostic, or maybe you used to go to church a long time ago, or maybe you've never heard, or maybe you're a Jesus follower, but you may have forgotten why Jesus came to earth and why we do this at all. Well, 2,000 years ago, Jesus came, and he said that the reason he came to earth was, he says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. That's why Jesus came. That's why this is important. Jesus came so that humanity could experience life, the kind of life that is so much more than just eating and drinking and reproducing, getting a house, sleeping, working, ultimately dying. Jesus came to convince humanity that what they called living wasn't life at all. It was merely existing. Jesus came so that you and I could authentically experience life, full and overflowing. Jesus talked about what spoils or keeps us from this satisfying life. Maybe you've never been to church, or maybe you grew up in a brand of Christianity that focused all the attention, all of the talks, all of the conversation was about the external and the outer negative things that you needed to stay away from in order to get God to accept you. But Jesus taught something and said something different than that. He taught that what keeps humans from experiencing life isn't anything external. He said, nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it's what comes out of a person that defiles them. In other words, your parents might have done a great job of protecting you and keeping you safe from what they felt were dark influences that would hurt you and corrupt your mind and your body. But Jesus said that you can live your life far away from any negative influence and still have your life ruined and spoiled, because your enemy isn't outside of you, it's inside you. And Jesus wasn't talking about the devil. He was talking about what was inside of you and what was inside of me. Don't you think that anything that prevents you from experiencing life, real life to the full, is a threat? I do. And so far in Winning the War Within, we've talked about, a couple weeks ago, the enemy of guilt. We talked about guilt makes us live in a way in which we feel, I owe you, right? Guilt numbs your soul. It ruins your relationships because of fear. We all blow it. None of us gets it right all the time. And that's when guilt comes in to remind us to make things right, not to imprison us or fill us with shame. We learn that honest confession, just owning and admitting what we've done humbly to God and to the people that we've hurt, that's where we begin to make things right. And where we can, try to make things right with them in other ways too. It's how we move forward, and it's how we grow. We learn that if you are in Christ, if you trust in what Jesus has done for you by taking your place on the cross and enduring the judgment of God, you can be guilty, but not condemned. No matter what you've done, you can live life free and loved because Jesus was condemned so that you didn't have to be. Last time we talked about the enemy of envy. We learned that envy makes us think that God owes us, or maybe the universe owes us, or life owes us something that we're not getting. We learned that envy and jealousy and comparison are always together, and how easy it is for us in our culture, especially with social media, to compare our lives with people all around us. We talked about how envy, wanting what belongs to someone else, is the breeding ground for evil and darkness in our lives. Envy makes us forget about what we've been given. We get blind to the goodness of God in our lives. We diminish our important purpose and the unique race we've been exclusively designed to run. And in this series, we're focusing on our hearts and minds, the internal essence of who we are, because most of us are pretty good at monitoring our behavior in public, aren't we? It's how some of you have managed to stay married, or keep your job, or stay in your relationship that you're in right now. Most of us have learned how to act around other people. We've learned how to show them the parts of ourselves we want them to see while hiding the other parts of ourselves. But how good are you at monitoring your heart and your mind, the deep, deep thoughts inside you? Jesus is going deeper than just our public behavior. He's going after our hearts. That's what winning the war within is all about. And today, we look at another enemy within. It's an enemy that many of us hide, but it can dominate our moods and our mouths on most days, for some of us. Jesus said, "For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come." And then he goes through a whole list, and we've been talking about it over the last few weeks. And one of the things he says that comes out, the evil thoughts that come out, and the things from inside that defile a person, is malice. Malice. When was the last time you heard anyone talk about malice? Maybe in that true crime podcast or that show you watch as a legal description of a crime. Malice is an intention to injure or hurt someone. That day that I told you about, where I was angry with Renee, I wanted to hurt Renee with my words that day when I was raging at her. That's why I kept raising my voice. That's why the toxicity in the words that I used intensified. I wanted her to feel as hurt and upset and bothered as I was, because she seemed to be having a great time. She had eaten, they were on their way out, listening to fun music in the car. I mean, they were having a great time, and I was miserable. And I wanted her to feel miserable too. It's malice. I was upset, and it wasn't okay for me that she wasn't. So I kept pouring on the rage until it finally made her upset. And regretfully, it worked. That is malice. Malice shows itself in our lives through anger. Some of you might say, "I need to sit this talk out, Steve, because I'm really not an angry person. I don't yell, I don't scream, but man, I really wish there was another person that was listening and watching to this right now, because they could really use this. I know some people who could really benefit from a talk like this." Well, before you stop paying attention, I think it's really important that you know that there are two kinds of angry people: explosive and implosive. Now, explosive people are like skunks. They are sometimes called skunks in the when it comes to the psychological world. That's kind of the way they are described, because when they get upset, and maybe this is you let all your feelings out, and everyone knows about it. You spray out all of your anger in words and actions. You scream at the cashier for not taking your coupons. You break things and yell. You burn rubber. You drive wild. You stink up the whole place with your rage. You express it. Skunks usually get all the attention when it comes to how people think about anger. But there's another kind of angry person. And this person is the turtle. This is the implosive person. That might be you. If you're a turtle, you don't yell or break things. No, oh no, that's not you. You're better than that. You're far more civilized. You're above that kind of crazy behavior. No, you rage silently. You get into your shell. You withdraw. You isolate. Even with people around you, you isolate. You shut down emotionally. You're not like a blistering, hot, erupting volcano, no. You're as cold as ice in an iceberg. You say things like, I'm done, I'm so over this, and you walk away. You stop responding, but everyone around you can feel your sullen, depressed mood. It's written all over your face. It's all in your body language. And when people ask you, they say, well, what's wrong? You respond by saying, what are you talking about? Nothing's wrong. By the way, skunks tend to marry turtles. So self-check. How often during your day do you find yourself saying, I'm so mad right now, or that makes me upset, or maybe a word you can't say around kids and other people, especially not in church. Maybe you haven't thought about this, or maybe you've forgotten, but remember that where there is anger, there is pain underneath. It's like what I was feeling that day. My feelings were hurt. I couldn't believe that they would just leave me and forget about me. Anger is like a forest fire. It burns everything that it touches, including you. Anger is like acid. You want to pour it out on someone else, but it also scorches your soul and even the innocent ones around you. When you're angry, the people who are next to you in the car with you, who have to live with you, even though you're not directing your anger at them, they feel your rage. It ruins everyone's moment around you. You've been in moments like that. If you speak when you're angry, like I did to Renee, you will make speeches that you will regret. Some of you have a seething rage boiling deep inside you. You're like the Incredible Hulk. You're always angry. Maybe it stems from your childhood. Maybe you're rejected by your parents. Maybe from a divorce you went through or a betrayal. Maybe you've been disrespected long enough and you feel like someone has treated you as if you were stupid and they took you for granted or they took advantage of you. For some of you, it's like a cold fusion reactor deep in your soul. Some of you burn hot and quick. You get on the road and within a moment, rage flashes up inside you and suddenly you are cursing a stranger. When you're angry, you are at your weakest because you feel victimized. Anger is our response when we feel we are powerless to control our situation. Anger is nothing more than the outward manifestation of powerlessness, of hurt, of fear, or frustration, or some combination of all those. One way it gets pent up inside is if at some time in your life, early on, maybe you've been victimized. Maybe you were bullied or subject to racial or gender discrimination. Maybe you had someone in a relationship with you bully you, push you around, take advantage of you. Or maybe as a child, you were subject to physical abuse or sexual abuse. Maybe you were abandoned or emotionally abused. Any of these things where you know you are being hurt, but you're powerless to fight back. And when that happens, it builds up inside and it festers until you get into a situation where you are finally done. You are over it. You're not taking it anymore. You're just waiting for someone to knock that chip off your shoulder. so you can unleash your fury on them. Anger, frustration, and rage are the safest emotions that we can feel. See, because you're less likely to be hurt, because you're the one who starts the fight. You're the aggressor. If you reject someone first in your anger, then you're not vulnerable to being rejected. Anger solves nothing. It builds nothing, but it can destroy everything. Some of you might say, well, Steve, I don't get angry. That's really not me. I just get frustrated. I don't get upset. I get disappointed. I'm not angry. I just don't like it when people do me wrong. Something to ask yourself is, what's the difference? Frustration is a paralyzing emotion. For some of you, it's been a tool for your survival. It's how you've been able to get this far in your life. You've used it to attack and intimidate others. And it's been your fuel and your shield to protect you from pain. It keeps you from being vulnerable, but it also, if you're honest with yourself, has kept you from really being close to anyone. Authentic intimacy seems to always elude you. Anger is a catalyst. It's a change agent. It makes you exhausted and sick. Some of you think you're just getting older and sicker, and that's why you have no energy, don't feel well. But what if it's really frustration, resentment, and anger within you? Anger will suck out your joy and the wonder of living. Expressing anger in business makes you less effective in your attempts to create change and forge connection, even with clients or customers. Sometimes anger can mask a far more difficult emotion like grief or regret or shame. Either way, anger is powerful, but a life-sucking companion. Do you see why it's an enemy within? Anger ruins your life. You can't experience a full and satisfying life if anger dominates your moods and your mouth. Can a heart full of anger truly love another person? How did your family of origin express anger? Your mom and dad. Some of you were raised in a culture of anger and it's become a habit for you. A peaceful environment feels strange to you because you're so used to tension and chaos. Anger and frustration reveal pain within. And even if you don't intend it or don't mean to, when you are acting like a turtle and you get withdrawn and you emotionally shut down, or you're a skunk, you are hurting the people you love most. Because pain that is not treated is transmitted. It's like COVID. You spread it to people around you, even if you don't mean to. It's like the prescribed burn that got out of control. You're giving it to your children and your grandchildren, to your significant other and to your friends, to your clients and to your customers. So, do you enjoy seeing anger rule your loved ones? Do you enjoy that? Do you want anger to control your days? There is a form of anger that is fueled by love. It's anger that was exemplified by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I call it Crusader anger. One day, as Dr. King sat on the stage during a convention, a white member of the Nazi Party jumped up onto the stage and punched him in the face several times. As the security guards rushed in to his help and pulled the hate-filled young man away, Dr. King responded calmly that he would not press charges. In response, he said, "The system that we live under creates people such as this young man, who's filled with hate. I am not interested in pressing charges. I am interested in changing the kind of system that produces this kind of man." Dr. King was angry, but his anger was at the system that creates hate, racism, injustice, and violence. That kind of anger motivates action to create change and is focused on helping others and sacrificing yourself for them. Anger is necessary and important to who you are when you are trying to get a change for others because others aren't getting what they deserve. But anger is destructive when your thought is, I'm not getting what I deserve. So how do you overcome anger? How do you conquer frustration and your habit of getting upset all the time? Jesus' little brother James writes a letter that shows the way forward. He's the same brother who was killed because he believed that his big brother was God after seeing him come back from the dead. James writes, he says, everyone should be slow to become angry. By everyone, it actually means everyone. It means fiery Latinas. It means people with an Irish temper. It means passionate Italians. It means every person who thinks they have a good reason to be upset. Everyone. James is saying that it should take a long time for you to get angry. So, if we were to ask the people who live with you, who know you well, if you are slow to anger or quick to anger, which do you think they would say about you? Really? James continues. He says, everyone should be slow to become angry because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Now, James is talking about what his big brother taught. He uses a word we don't use much today. It sounds kind of religious and churchy, called righteousness. We've talked about righteousness here before. Pro tip, James is not talking about being a goody-goody or some kind of rule follower. James is talking about what his big brother Jesus taught when it comes to righteousness. He's talking about your relationships with other people. Jesus taught that righteousness means that you treat and speak to every person as if they are custom made in the image of God. You give them the honor and respect due someone that God created and loves deeply and values highly. If you are a Jesus follower, remember that not only is God your Father, but He's also their Father. That Jesus died for the person in the car next to you, the one tailgating you, the one a little too close of your side of the road. He died for the person who abused you, the one who stole from you, just like He died for you. This should be natural for us to understand, especially if you're a parent or grandparent, or you have someone that you really love in your life. Because if you do, you know that the fastest way for someone to get on your bad side is to have them mistreat the person you love. When you treat any human, strangers or family, customers or neighbors, competitors, or those who oppose you, as less than someone made in the image of God, it is like you are mistreating God. Just like if someone was mistreating a person that you love, it would be as if they were mistreating you. Think about it. When you are angry, are you more or less likely to treat people like they are made in the image of God? When you are frustrated, is the sarcastic tone you use suitable for addressing a son or daughter of God? Would you be okay if someone treated your son or your daughter or your loved one that way? He asks a question first. It's an important question. He says, who is wise and understanding among you? It's a good question. Who is wise and understanding among you? Are you wise? Wisdom, by the way, is knowing that life is connected. If you have wisdom, you connect the dots in life. Wise people know that past decisions impact the present and that present choices impact their future. Wise people realize that there's a cause and effect, an action and then a reaction. choices and consequences. When we were kids, we didn't have that wisdom. You remember? We had to learn. Some of us are still learning. Watch this.
Good job.
So that was the opposite of wisdom. That was unwise. That was not wisdom. Those were people who have still not learned, or maybe they forgot that life is connected. James says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom." James is saying that wise people are humble people. Arrogant people are not wise. Do you remember that we learned that the first thing Jesus taught when he was here, he taught people what was needed to experience a blessed life or a happy life or a full life? The number one thing that he taught, the first thing, was humility. Do you remember that? Wise people know that everything they have is a gift. It was given to them. That they aren't the source of their life. That their life, their family, their opportunities, their job, their health was given to them. So they're humble. James continues. He says, "But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth." And we talked about this last time, that when we allow envy, James says bitter envy, to stay in our hearts. When we want something that belongs to someone else, it could be getting your way at work, wanting a baby, more financial resources, or just wanting to not wait in line in traffic. Or if you have selfish ambition, a desire that is all about you, your dream for how you want your life to go and how the world should work. You want a clean house but have 3-year-olds around. You want more money but have to pay taxes. You want people not to tailgate you. James is saying, don't call people up and tell them about it. Don't tell your version of the story. The version where the other person gets 100% of the blame and you get none of it, because that other person isn't on the line to give their side of the story. James says, don't deny the truth of what's really going on. That what is really bothering you is caused by wanting something that belongs to someone else and by wanting to get your own way all the time. James writes, he says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? That's an important question. But some of you might think he's asking it incorrectly. You might want to correct James. If you were here right now, you might say, James, it's not a what, it's a who that causes fights and quarrels. It's the president or the legislature or the Supreme Court. It's this governor or the Democrats or the Republicans, James. It's my mom or my spouse. It's my ex. It's my parents, my boss. It's my kids. It's my brother-in-law. It's my neighbor. They make terrible and stupid decisions. They criticize me all the time. They don't help me. They don't contribute. They are narcissists and they just want to take all the time. They want to talk about religion and politics or that I should eat better or how to do my yard or how to live my life, and they disrespect me. The problem, James, is a who or two, not a what. James would say, that's why we're talking about this. Because as long as you think your anger has to do with a who, then anger will dominate your life. If you keep thinking that the cause of your anger is a who or two, you will have a summer of rage. James says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Isn't the reason James is saying that you're upset is that you think if I could get you to see things my way, to drive my way, to live life the way I want you to if you would lead me as a boss the way I want you to if you would talk the way I want you to, then we wouldn't fight. Everything would be great. It would be peaceful. Because I don't know if you know this, but I'm right. And my way is the right way. Haven't you heard? Anger, rage, and frustration are caused by desires within you, according to James. There is something you want from that person that you're not getting. Isn't that really why you're upset? They aren't listening to you. They aren't hearing you. They aren't helping you. They refuse to agree with you. I just want you to get a job. Be responsible and clean up your room because it shows that you respect and love me. You want these things from that person because, after all, I earned it. But they promised. But what they did wasn't fair. But Steve, you don't understand. I don't want something. I deserve it. So let me get this straight. You want what you earned, right? But Steve, it's not about my desires. No, they promised and they have to live up to their end of the agreement. So let me get this straight. You want them to keep their promise. So you want them to act fairly. You're not getting what you want. If you're a parent, you're familiar with this scene. Kids fighting in the back seat. It's him, it's her, and you have one hand on the wheel and you're reaching back and you're hearing them say, you started it. No, you started it. And you're trying to keep the kids from touching each other. And what do you say? You say enough. It doesn't matter who started it. You're both to blame right now. Get away from each other. Put yourselves in timeout. You realize that both kids want something and neither of them is getting it. So when you realize that the cause of your anger and rage and frustration is this, that you are not getting what you want. You want to stay in your house instead of being evacuated. You want the fire to be contained and put out already. You want your hunting and fishing area to not be burned. You want your boss to communicate better. You want your boyfriend to propose already. When you begin to embrace this, what James is talking about as a lifestyle, your internal temperature will begin to go down. James says, you desire, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. James is saying you're not getting what you want, so you kill. That sounds dramatic, right? Does that mean I murder someone? Think about it. You're not getting what you want, so you become a turtle or you become a skunk and you kill the conversation. You kill acceptance. You kill affection. You kill warmth, which ends up killing the relationship. You ignore or you go on the attack. You shut down or you turn the argument back on them. You pull back or you remind them of all the other times they fail you. You emotionally withdraw or you rip them apart with your words. You give them an ultimatum or you deny the other person kindness, encouragement, and hospitality. When you do any of these things, you kill trust. You kill vulnerability. You kill the relationship. So we aren't getting our way, James is saying. We're angry, we quarrel, we fight because we aren't getting what we want. So the next time you start to get angry and you begin to quarrel and fight, remember this and say it out loud. You know what part of the problem is, don't you? I'm not getting what I want. It will freak the person out that you're having a conflict with. How do they respond to that? Okay, sure. Just say it to them out loud. I'm not getting what I want. That's why I'm upset. And they'll probably say, well, what do you want? It might be a great way to move the relationship forward and resolve the tension and conflict. So, what is your relationship with anger right now? How much does anger, frustration, or rage control your mood or your mouth? Really? What would those who know you best say to that question? Maybe it's just at home. Maybe it's just around certain kinds of people. Maybe it's just that one person who just gets to you like no one else can. Maybe to everyone else, they think you are just the sweetest and kindest and most fun and nice person, but at home, those people who live with you know the truth. They know your rage and they have to endure your wrath. Do the people who live with you have to walk on eggshells around you? Do you want to overcome anger? Do you want to win the war within against the enemy of anger? When you feel anger rising up, and for some of you it will be later on today, you're going to get to practice this. You can say to the anger inside you, I know what's going on here. You want me to think that it's the kids or her or him or the people out shopping that are the problem. But I know it's not them. I know that at least part of the problem is that I'm not getting what I want. If you want to conquer the emotion that has controlled your mood and your mouth for too long, it begins with humility. And Jesus shows us the way forward. Who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Jesus was God in a bod. He was God in a body. He was equal with God. So what does God deserve? What does God get to demand? Is there anyone that deserves more than God? Yet, Jesus never powered up. He never flexed. He never demanded his way. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Jesus didn't get his way. He didn't get what he wanted. He chose a better way. And it's not natural, and it doesn't make sense. That's why there are so many people whose moods and mouths are controlled by anger and frustration. Jesus made himself nothing? Are you kidding me? Who would choose that option? It makes no sense. Jesus found meaning in his life, not by having a life and circumstances that served him, but by making himself a means to an end, saving the world. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Jesus overcame the enemy of anger by humbling himself. He practiced what he preached. He lived it out. And if it's good enough for Jesus, who predicted his own death and resurrection and pull it off, I just go with whatever he says. Jesus didn't get his way. He didn't get what he wanted. Have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, it's okay if you don't get everything you deserve? Has that ever even crossed your mind? That maybe it's okay if you don't get everything you want in this life? What if the price and the trade-off for getting everything you want and everything you deserve is that you won't be able to enjoy it because anger, frustration, and bitterness have eaten you up inside, and they get to decide what your mood is and to control what you say and how you feel. This is why following Jesus will make your life better and will make you better at life, because Jesus will nudge you away from self-centeredness and arrogance and towards others-centeredness and humility. When you follow Jesus towards other-centeredness and humility, your life gets bigger and it gets better. We'll stop there for today. Don't miss next time for Winning the War Within. I'm really hoping to see you in person soon. We meet every weekend, every Sunday at 10, and I'd love to see you in person. But if not, we'll be here, and we'll see you here next time.
So you ready to start winning the war within? What are some of the enemies inside that you need to confront today? Let me pray for you. Let me pray for you that you would know God's grace and help to win the war within, because you're not alone. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, Father, for every person watching here today. I know that it's not by chance that they are here watching this message today, Father. I ask that it just speaks to their heart, Father, and that whatever is inside them, Father, that you would surface that up, Father, and give them wisdom, Father, to lay it at your feet, Father. Because you say that we can hand anything to you, Father, and not to worry. Father, I pray that you would surface everything, Father, whether it's anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide. Father, I ask that you would just cover them in your love, Father, and your peace in this time, Father. And I ask that your Holy Spirit would just touch them. Father, we thank you that you're so merciful and graceful, Father. Show them and reveal to them your grace and your mercy. We love you, Father, and we bless you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, that's it for today. We'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching. Have a great week.